like that. So if you can throw a, I can hear you in the chat, that would be awesome. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes because of course I had technical issues and my Zoom decided that it was going to change the link, I think because it's updated a few times since I had the Zoom initially. So I think that's kind of why. But either way, we are all here now. I'm gonna give a couple minutes for folks to come in just to make sure, because I didn't catch it until like 2 minutes before, because that's how life is. So yeah, say hi, tell me where you're from. I always love to see where people come from on this. I am based out of Seattle, specifically Ballard, if you know Seattle at all. Ballard's sort of the Brooklyn of Seattle. We're separated by a nice little ship canal, and we're separated by the ship canal and Lake Union from downtown. So we're our own sort of entity. So Elizabeth's from San Francisco, Katrina's from Spokane, which is awesome. I've never been to Spokane, I wanna go. Sandra's from New Jersey. I used to live in New York for a long time, so I get that. Try to see how Birmingham, Alabama. One of my good friends, Amanda, lives in Birmingham. That's really fun. I love that. All right. So I think we're a smaller party today, but that's really fun and cool. So as people come in, we can certainly let them join us. But just a couple of things before we start. So a little housekeeping. So I'm going to keep you muted. However, you can use the chat to communicate to me, to ask questions. I'll be watching the chat as we go. And there will also be a Q&A at the end. So if I do happen to miss your question, we'll be scanning the chat as we go, but also just in case you do, you know, I missed the question because you guys are asking a million questions, it's totally fine. And I will catch you. You don't have to be on video unless you want to be. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at. And that's sort of it. Oop, I accidentally PowerPointed myself. Okay. So welcome to our webinar. So I am, or masterclass. I call it masterclass because I hate the word webinar. So my name is Megan Stevenson. I help entrepreneurs, experts, and thought leaders create book proposals that sell to major publishers. So if you've been told that you should write a book, if you dream of being a published author, if your goal is to expand your reach and the name recognition of yourself or your brand, and if you're struggling to write your proposal, then this masterclass is perfect for you. So what we're going to cover in the next hour or so is a little bit about how the publishing industry works, why people fail to write book proposals that sell. I'm going to share an important secret that no one else will tell you about publishing. And then we'll also cover what you need to do in order to complete your book proposal and sell it for lots and lots of money. So here's my question for you. Does this sound like you? Do you want to write a book that matters both in other people's lives and to your bottom line? And maybe you just have no freaking clue how to get there? Or maybe you know a couple things, right? You might know that you want to be a New York Times bestseller, or that you really don't want to self-publish because that's not your jam. Or maybe you know that you need to build this mysterious thing called a platform. And that's just a mystery to you. If that's the case, like, you're so not alone. And maybe you worry about spending a ton of time or money on a dream that just might not come true. I totally understand why you might feel that way, but as someone who actually helps people get published on the regular, I know that none of that is actually your problem. I know. Instead, maybe your problem is that you're an expert in something else, not book publishing. So in this masterclass, I'm going to pull back the curtain for a moment and confess that writing nonfiction book proposals is a trade. It's just like plumbing, right? I always joke that it's not rocket science, and that's hilarious because my friend is a rocket scientist, and even he's like, rocket science isn't rocket science, which I think is the funniest sentence ever. But so, like, in terms of writing nonfiction books, right, it can be this situation where sometimes DIY is totally fine, right? But the reason I equate it to a trade like plumbing is because sometimes DIY in plumbing is not a good idea. Like, my husband fancies himself handy and he decided he was going to like install his own bidet, yeah, you can guess how that goes, right? Sometimes you end up fine. Sometimes, I would argue most of the time, you end up in a situation where the water won't stop flowing out of the toilet and flooding your whole damn house, right? I was lucky when the bidet situation happened. I was not here. It was lovely. He told me about it later. So I was not like freaking out about, you know, us having like a ruined bathroom. So once you learn what I'm going to teach you today, you'll have a better knowledge of the publishing industry and how you need to shift your behavior and approach to make your dream come true. And by the end of the masterclass, you will learn the common factors that go into every book proposal that attracts a top literary agent and garners a big advance from a publisher. So I should know all this because for the last 8 years, I've helped over 16 authors score major book deals with New York City publishers. So that's HarperCollins, that's Random House, that's Penguin, that's Simon & Schuster. And that doesn't even count the bestsellers I've had and the first-time authors that I've helped work on their manuscripts. So I've been in this business for 15 years. Half on the side of the author where I'm helping them, you know, find an agent and get published just like I do now. And then half inside the houses working at Penguin and Simon & Schuster. So a little bit about me in case you didn't do the Google deep dive. Some people do, some people don't. It's cool. So I worked out as an editor at Simon & Schuster from 2004 to 2008, and then at Penguin from 2008 to 2012. I've helped nearly 100 authors, I have to actually update this number, with nonfiction books and book proposals. I have a crazy success rate. When I actually looked at this and calculated the numbers, even I was impressed. 84% of the authors I work with on their book proposals sell their projects to a major publisher, and that includes getting an agent. That is compared to roughly 1% overall. They actually don't have stats on that because it's just such a huge amount of submissions that go out, and you know, we don't really track like people that fail, right? There's just no way to track that, but I would guess just based on my experience and the literary agents and editors I polled that maybe 1% of people overall get a book deal and 84% of my clients do, which is pretty crazy. 2 of those clients have gotten over 6 figures for their books in terms of an advance from a publisher in the past 3 years. And best of all, I'm an entrepreneur myself, right? So I know what it takes to build a platform and a business you love. I know both sides of this situation. And before we go any further, it's the perfect time to pull out that handy dandy workbook I sent you. If you don't have it, I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for you. Give me 1 sec so I can do this. I have to stop sharing for a second so I can go into my app, get the good link. And if you missed stuff, we're just starting. So if you ended up joining us late, no big deal. So there's the freebie link. So if you didn't get it from your email, you can get it there. It's a really handy dandy workbook that you can use. If you have a printer available, I suggest printing it. But if you don't, no worries, you can just follow along. It's pretty simple. I've actually done this myself. Take this, what we're going to do in terms of the circles and the different stoplight method that we're going to talk about. I actually kind of took that from one of my clients who does it with her people. And now I lost my chat. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Awesome. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. So tell me what you're working on. Drop that in the chat so I know who I'm dealing with. We've got about 12 of you on this call, so I'm excited, or 11 counting me. So I'm excited to see what you guys are working on. So tell me a little bit about your books and your dream, you know, what are you working on? Are you working on a memoir? Are you working on a prescriptive book? Are you working on something related to your business or your life goals or your experiences? Just go ahead and drop that in the chat. And what I'm going to tell you too about the workbook is that on page 2, there is a place to jot down your dream outcome for your book. So you can take a minute right now and do that. You can do that after class. But it's important to have that in mind when we talk about what I'm going to talk about next. And yeah, it's those cool circles I mentioned. So you can do this on a separate piece of paper to give yourself more room. So like as an example, when I did this with my client, this is like, I did it on legal pad, right? And I keep that because I love it. I love the circles. They make me happy. So Amy said, I'm really just getting started, so I'm not 100% sure, but work with writing in the education field. Amy, education is so ripe. Whenever anyone comes to me with an education book, one of the best sellers I worked on, I Wish My Teacher Knew by Kyle Schwartz, is one of the best-selling books I've worked on. Teacher books sell really, really well. Sandra says, working on a business-related book about internal and executive communications. Oh my gosh, as someone who has been the recipient of Reply All, I completely get it. Katrina, my business is pharmaceutical and medical device discovery, development, and manufacturing. Wow, that's amazing. My cousins are both pharmacists, so necessary. Elizabeth, working on a book about memoir perspective about an exec burned out and then went on an extensive healing journey. Oh, that's super cool. I work with a lot of different woo practitioners and different people, and we almost always in 90% of those books, we're working on a rock bottom story, because everyone, my old boss at Penguin used to say that everyone's writing the book they need. And if you consider that, it's easy to help folks. Cool. So that's awesome. Now that I know kind of what you're working on, we can sort of move to the next thing, which is those cool circles. So as I see it, there are 3 key elements that every entrepreneur needs to create a book proposal that solves. I only usually share these with my one-on-one clients, so you guys are in for a treat, or you ladies are in for a treat, because we're all ladies here, which I love. My 3 secrets to selling a book proposal are knowledge, clarity, and execution. So we're going to go through each of these topics for where you're at with your book proposal or project, wherever it's at right now. So that's what those handy dandy circles are for. As I'm talking about each one of these topics, I want you to label where you're at like a stoplight: red, green, yellow. Red indicates an area that you need to work on. Yellow means that you're off to a good start, but maybe you're not all the way there. And green means you're ready to go, right? You're all set. So let's address knowledge first. In order to sell a book proposal, you must first decide what you're about. So red in this category is being all over the place, playing the compare and despair game, getting stuck, feeling like you maybe aren't good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you don't have the accolades, or you don't have the experience, or you don't have the credentials, any of that sort of thing. Yellow is having an idea of the competition, but not knowing how to differentiate yourself, right? You don't know how you stand out or why. And green is that you know who you are, you know who you serve, and what you want to accomplish with your book, with your business, with your life. Amanda says, I'm just beginning to think about writing a book. The purpose of the book would be to bring glory to God by helping managers to be Christ-centered leaders. I worked in banking for over 18 years and just started a leadership development, coaching, and consulting practice. That's awesome. So I do find that entrepreneurs at the beginning of their journeys is a really helpful place to start working with someone like me, because often the book acts as a lead magnet for the business. And then also, the business can support the book. So it's really awesome. And usually they dovetail super closely. So that is also something that to keep in mind about when to get involved with someone like me, or when to hire, or, when it's appropriate. So now that we're done with that, we're going to move on to the next thing, which is understanding the publishing process. So when I talk about that, we're talking really about industry. So things like, how do you get an agent? Things like, what are they looking for? How do you submit a proposal? All that sort of thing. So you'd be in the red here if you know nothing. You can mark down yellow if you have done some research, but you're getting conflicting advice, or maybe you're researching out of your genre. So for example, when someone comes to me, someone came very recently and said, I heard from this person that there's only 4 places to get published. And I thought, well, that's weird. So I asked about it, and it was a cookbook author. Well, cookbook author is super different than a how-to book, right? And it's certainly different than literary fiction. It's different than all these sorts of things. So we want to make sure we're asking the right questions from the right people. And green is that you understand how the publishing industry works and have an idea of how you'll approach agents and editors. Now, I wouldn't expect a lot of you to be in the green on this one, to be completely honest, just because it's kind of rare. Publishing's a weird, rarefied world. And that's part of my mission in doing these free masterclasses, is to sort of open that door a little bit, hold back the curtain, kind of Wizard of Oz style on publishing. So the last part of knowledge is thinking like a publisher. So you'd be in the red here if you're not sure how to distinguish yourself from other authors, experts, or books. In the yellow, you would know of the competition, but you don't have a strategy to reach your readers. And green, you've read every frickin' book in the category and you know exactly why you're different and why your book's going to be different or better than everybody else. So if you're just joining us, because a few people just joined, we are on page 2 of the workbook. We're talking about different elements of knowledge, clarity, and execution. So we just finished up the knowledge part. We're about to move to clarity. So in each of these areas, we're going to go with red, yellow, and green where you're at. There's no right or wrong answers, it's just sort of a starting place. So moving on, when we talk about clarity, the first step in getting clear is designing your dream outcome. So in this situation, you'd be in the red if you haven't really thought about how your book fits into the bigger picture of what you'll be doing and how you'll be earning money day in, day out, year in, year out, right? How does that all fit into your everyday life? In yellow, you have some dreams and intentions in this area, but you haven't really implemented anything, right? You have an idea of where you're going, but you haven't really started driving. In green, you know exactly how a book fits into your future goals and your plans for your life, okay? So then we can take a step back from that dream outcome and leverage where you're at right now. So we want to leverage your existing assets. So red, you have 0 platform and 0 editorial. So a great example of this, when we talk about platform, I kind of always think of it as like this 1850s speaker, like Frederick Douglass style, like standing out in front of people selling soap or whatever. And so and literally that is what it is. It's a platform to speak. So in today's modern world, that could be a testimonials, being really well known for the work you do, doing speaking, participating in workshops, you know, all that sort of stuff, your personal professional network. So my platform, for example, is my Instagram and my email list mostly, but also like maybe my Facebook and my industry connections. And, you know, when I decide to go on podcasts and things like that, that would all be part of my platform. And when it comes to editorial, that's actually stuff written down, right? How much do you have written? So a good example of the red would be one of my clients who came to me. He's an autoimmune sufferer. He has 2 different autoimmune diseases. He's an estate lawyer and he wants to write a book and be a coach on for people with autoimmune on how to live with autoimmune disease. Pretty cool, right? But he didn't have anything in the works for that. So he would be in the red. Yellow is you have some platform and some editorial. So a great example of this is a client I'm currently working with. She's a therapist. She helps women and couples resolve attachment issues. And so when she came to me, she had a very lively Instagram. She had a good email list that she hadn't really been working. She just had been collecting emails and not doing a lot with it. And she had a really rough book proposal that we basically had to tear apart and redo. So she was like halfway there, right? She needed to implement some business strategies. She needed me to rework her proposal, but she was like halfway there. And then green is you're super duper close to having an awesome platform. So a good example of this is my client, Tasha Cochran. She runs a site called One Big Happy Life, and she has a ton of followers, very active YouTube, a successful program called Wealth Builders Academy, about to be renamed Wealth Builders Society. She's got, you know, her business is 6 figures. She's got all this ideas, all this editorial for me to work from. She's pretty much in that green. So we need to know exactly where you're at, and it can be really, really red, right? You can be at the very beginning and that's totally fine. But we need to understand where you're at so we can make up the gap between where you're at and where you want to be, and where I need you to be, and agents need you to be, and publishers need you to be in order to get a book deal. And how we do that is we prioritize your path forward. So this is something I'm awesome at, right? Like you should see me Jenga a car. I'm amazing organizational mind. And when it comes to building out a platform and editorial, there's a lot going on at once. And so part of my job in the work I do is to hold all that for you and tell you what to do next, right? What's your best next move, and really help you from getting stuck. So you would be in the red here if you're totally overwhelmed, right? You have lots of plans, but you don't know where to start, and therefore your work is disorganized. Maybe you do hit your to-do list, but nothing's ever really done. It's like half done here, half done there. Yellow is what I call scattershot. It's a nice way of saying you're all over the place. So you've got a list a mile long, and exactly what I said before, you spend an hour here, an hour there. Maybe you bought some courses, you attend all the master classes, but you never really execute on the material or hire anybody, right? You're always sort of waiting for someone to, give you permission, or you just have the editorial down pat, but you haven't done anything for your platform, right? Anything like that, that's very yellow. And green is that you're a total go-getter. You know exactly what you're going to do in the next 6 months to a year to get to the place where you need to be published. Like, you're on this call just to check me out and make sure I'm not insane, and then you're ready to talk to me and start working tomorrow. Okay, so red, yellow, green on that. Now we can move on to execution, which is the last piece in writing a killer book proposal. So execution is a fancy way of saying writing the damn thing, right? So the first part of that is explaining your ideas. So red is like nothing's written down. It's all in your head, right? Yellow is like you've got a couple Google Docs, but it's all over the place. And frankly, it's mostly in your head. And green is you have a working table of contents and maybe even a chapter or two drafted, right? So you've got something going. And I do think I am skipping. Nope, I'm not skipping. Haha. Okay, sorry, ladies. So yeah, so that's sort of where we're at, right? Where are we at with that? So we are, explaining our ideas. Are they all in your head? Are they all up on the page? The next thing that we want to do in terms of getting the thing written down is describing your uniqueness. So this one's all about marketing yourself in your book. So red is like you have no plans on marketing. And by the way, hoping to get speaking, not a plan, okay? That's a dream. We want a plan. Yellow is you have ideas, but you haven't taken action. So in terms of speaking, maybe there's some organizations that you know or people that you know of that do speaking, and you could reach out to them. And then the green is that you have a clear step-by-step plan and a team to help you execute. So maybe you hired a social media manager or someone to help you run Facebook ads or an admin, right? And last but not least, selling your dream. So by this, I mean talking to agents about your proposal or editors. So when you go in for a meeting with a publisher or jump on Zoom with someone other than me in publishing, you need to be ready. This is often described as a pitch, but I really think of it as being able to succinctly share who you are and what you're about. For example, if we were to talk about Marie Forleo, we could say that she helps people figure out what they want to do and how to achieve it. She also offers an online business school, right? That's easy. That's like 2 sentences. So if you're in the red on this one, you haven't thought about this at all, and you cannot describe your book in 2 minutes or less, okay? If you're in the yellow, you have thought about this moment, and you can get it down to about 90 seconds, right? And our greenies are those who have a 30-second and 1-minute elevator pitch ready to go for whenever they're asked about the book. So this, like all of the other greens, right, are pretty rare. So let me know, drop in the chat how that workbook is doing. And if it's a lot of red, don't worry, I'm gonna help you. So that is what this masterclass is doing. We're just figuring out where you're at. So let's figure out where you guys are in red, yellow, green. And I always laugh about this part because I keep this one that I showed you because this is what I did with my business. Like this was last year. I wish I had a date on this because it was all freaking red. It's like, there's like 2, 3 yellows and everything else is red. It's crazy. But now I'd probably be in the green. I need to rewatch that. So Sandra says, knowledge is green, clarity is yellow, green, execution is yellow, and uniqueness is green. Awesome. Sandra, if you go to the link in the chat, you can see the circles. I can share them afterwards too in a bigger workbook. Katrina says predominantly yellow in all areas. That's so common. That is so, so common. I think most of my clients before they start working with me is definitely in the yellow for sure. Amanda says mostly red, some yellow. Not unusual either. I would be shocked, honestly, if you got more in the green. Elizabeth says, knowledge is red or yellow, clarity is green or yellow, and selling is yellow. And Marie says, mostly red, lots of work to do. Yeah, for sure. It's not, it's again, if it's mostly red, don't worry, I got you. So let's dive a little deeper on a couple of the topics I see clients having most trouble with, okay? And Amy, your orange, red, and yellow is brilliant. I love it. I love it. Yellow and green would be like chartreuse, right? I think so. We should probably come up with a chartreuse level. So I'm going to go out on a limb and make the assumption that most of you don't understand how the publishing works or don't know how the publishing works, how publishing industry works. But if you don't know the rules of the game, how can you expect to win, right? For example, have you thought about how your book fits into your existing business or career? If you haven't, you're not alone, right? So many of the entrepreneurs that I help have not. But ideally, a book should do two things. It should increase your reach and increase your profit. But that doesn't happen by accident. When was the last time you went into a physical bookstore? Now, this is pre-pandemic, right? So the last time I went into a bookstore was probably like February or March. And so that's when everything shut down here. But a lot of people I know or I work with haven't been into a physical bookstore in years, right? They might be bought everything off Amazon or they just order stuff. Similarly, when's the last time you checked the bestseller list? Looking at book descriptions on Amazon isn't going to give you the knowledge of what's been published in each category that editors have or agents have. For example, any editor or agent that works in the self-help space knows that before Rachel Hollis cornered the market on Frank Life Advice, there was Jen Sincero and then Mark Manson, right? And like a long string of people before that. So what makes most wannabe authors fail to see how these three authors differ, but they're basically same to the publisher, right? So what the authors fail to see is how they differ to readers, and then also what makes them the same to the publisher. So that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to realizing what you don't know about our industry. But don't worry, I'm going to teach you a little bit about publishing later on in this masterclass. So that's our knowledge bit for like what it takes. But as we discussed before, you also need clarity. So it's not enough just to be a unique snowflake, creating blizzards of cash for your business, right? That would be nice. And some of you might be there, but your book needs to be successful too. So you need to be that crystal clear about your path and your goals and be able to articulate that in about 30 awesome sounding seconds. So let's talk about the dream you wrote earlier for a minute. What's there? Do you want a New York Times bestseller? Do you want a six-figure deal? Do you want to be an in-demand speaker? Do you want to, Amy, do you want to do, I think it was Amy with Amanda, do you want to be going into churches every Sunday? Or would you just be happy with a beautiful book that you can give to your family and friends, or maybe that you can just, hand off to clients? Like, I would be curious, what is the dream outcome there, right? So like, what is the dream outcome that you would like in terms of your book? Why are you here, right? That's the real question. So drop that in the chat. You can figure it out. And if not, we can move on to C. Karen says conscious leadership certifications for corporate leaders across industries. That's super cool. So Karen, would you be doing like workshops at corporations? Make sure that everybody is not a jerk? That's awesome, she does. Oh, cool, that's killer, I love that. My husband's a middle manager at Expedia, so he goes through a lot of those like certifications and different things. Elizabeth, manifesting to be a New York Times bestseller. Yes. Sandra says a six-figure deal, an in-demand speaker, extend business reach. Love it. That's what a lot of my clients do, Sandra. Amy, read a wide swath of teachers to help improve education for learners. Love that. Katrina says, I'm on a strong passive income stream and a way for people to access my consulting at different levels. That's perfect. I mean, honestly, that is what a lot of my clients do, right? So many of my clients come to me because they either want to get away from one-to-one work, like time in, time out, go to the office type work, or they want to make a bigger impact, and speaking is a big part of that, or that they want to give people a resource that they don't have to be present for, right? And that's a really great purpose for your book in that. Cool. Okay, so now that we talked about this, we have to combine those things. We have to combine the knowledge and the clarity in order to execute, right? So the knowledge about the publishing industry, which you're going to learn a little bit more about, and then the clarity of what you just told me about what your goals are, right? So you have to, part of the execution trick of executing on this is writing the damn thing. So you have to sit down at your computer and write. You have to generate piece by piece proposal. That's often more work than writing the damn book. Trust me, I know. I've done both, okay? And if that wasn't enough, then you have to implement whatever platform building and marketing strategies you came up with in the clarity stage. Then you have to sell your idea. So if you've never been in a fancy boardroom in New York City with about 20 people staring at you ready to say no, then you haven't had that experience, right? I have. And I can tell you that's why I know you need knowledge, clarity, and execution to get where you want to go. So let's dive a little deeper on the 3 problems I see most often. And as a reminder, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So if anything comes up for you while I'm talking that you want to ask me about, feel free to drop that in the chat, okay? So the first thing, as we said before, is understanding how publishing works. So publishing seems like this super glamorous world where people read all day and they can just bestow like J.K. Rowling dust on someone's head with a magic wand, or more realistically, a hand holding a 6-figure contract, am I right? But as someone who once worked in a hallway at Simon & Schuster, I can attest that it's not like that, okay? But it's frustrating to not understand how to get that magic pixie dust bestowed on you. Landing a book deal can feel like getting in the cash cab. It obviously happens to other people, and you know it would be great if you were given a chance to compete, but the whole thing kind of feels rigged, and you don't know where the cab picks people up. So you just decide it's better to play small and kick ass at bar trivia instead. You'll realize that I love metaphors, and in this one, bar trivia is self-publishing or just choosing not to publish at all. Because traditional publishing is scary. Agents are scary, editors are scary, and if publishers are anything like Miranda Priestley and The Devil Wears Prada, then that's one big no. Am I right? But everyone I work with, like literally everyone, is a little freaked out, a little intimidated. But here's the deal. I know this industry inside and out. I can hail that cash cab for you. And though I can't answer the questions for you, I can get you inside. And that makes getting to your destination faster and a little more fun. Okay, so enough metaphors for right now. Let's talk about my client, Denise Duffield Thomas. You might know Denise. She's the founder of luckybitch.com and has a popular money bootcamp course. Denise had already successfully self-published 2 books when she came to me with a dream of being published by Hay House. I helped her craft a book proposal, introduced her to a couple of literary agents I know, and bam, she got a deal with Hay House. Isn't that awesome? Denise was already successful in business. She just needed to understand how publishing worked and how to position herself so her value was clear to a publisher. I knew that, and so I helped make her dream come true. Now I would love to hear from you again, so put your thoughts in the chat. What would knowing more about the ins and outs of the publishing world mean to you? How would it change your thinking or your goals? So that's something I really want to ask about. So like a big piece of what I do, especially with entrepreneurs, is explain the world of online entrepreneurship to publishers and vice versa, because they don't understand the first thing about sales funnels or lead magnets, right? It's a whole world that we talk about, and we want to communicate that to a more genteel old world approach that traditional publishing has. You know, so we need to really like anchor it. We're all talking business, but it's just a question of what we're talking about when we talk about business. So go ahead and drop that in the chat if you have any thoughts about what knowing the ins and outs of publishing would do for you. So the next thing I want to talk about is thinking like a book publisher. So I read a lot of just okay book proposals and manuscripts where the author has made a gigantic common mistake. You can't even see my hands so far. It's such a big mistake. Many authors assume that their story is different and special and worthy of attention, but that's not automatically true. Sorry, official snowflake. I love that line. Publishers don't know who you are or why your story should matter or how many followers you have on Instagram or how often you've been asked to write a book, right? And to some extent, they don't care. Harsh but true. That's because what publishers care about is sales. Every editor and publisher and agent are looking for a great product, and better yet, a product that will easily sell to a specific audience without a ton of money or work spent on their part. Publishers are like a bad boyfriend. They only care about themselves, and they'll drop you in a hot minute when something better comes along. The benefit to traditionally publishing is that you'll have help. If it's clear you're going to be helping the publisher make money. But if you're not going to share the work of promoting and marketing your book, you might as well self-publish because the publisher isn't going to be interested, okay? And self-publishing is not the easy way out, y'all, because then you have to do everything. You have to write the book, you have to market the book, you have to format the book, you have to design the cover, you have to handle distribution, you have to do everything. That's why so many authors still prefer and get better results with traditional publishing, because publishers need books that sell and authors that are ready to help them sell, which is why you need to flip the script and start thinking like a publisher. Thinking like a publisher puts you in charge of your product, and guess what? It's something most successful entrepreneurs are already good at. Most of us just don't think about books that way. But when you start thinking like a publisher, you're able to see that books are something you sell, and more importantly, it's something your audience will buy. In that way, a book is identical to online courses, to coaching services, to one-on-one offers, to basically everything, even toothpaste. So I want to give you an example of how flipping the script can make a huge difference in whether agents, editors, and publishers take you seriously. So a couple of years ago, I was approached by an agent who was working with a popular female entrepreneur named Susie Moore. You might know Susie too. Susie's proposal was getting rejected all over town, and the agent wasn't sure why. So she asked me for advice. And within a couple minutes of reading Susie's proposal, I knew why. She wasn't thinking like a publisher, and neither was her agent. So the publishing industry runs on razor thin margins. For every Mark Manson or Rachel Hollis, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of books that don't make the publisher a dime, right? They spend all this money on the author advance and they don't earn it back. So this particular author had unique advice to give, but the editorial content was all over the place. And because her writing felt scattered, she seemed that way too. It wasn't clear in the proposal how popular she was or that she's friends with every big name in life coaching or hashtag inspo. It wasn't clear how her platform, like Denise's, included affiliate marketing partners that would expand her reach into the millions and make this a slam dunk or at least a bestseller. All the editors saw it was a mess, and no one wants to deal with someone else's mess, right? Except maybe me. So I dove into her proposal and helped streamline the content. We completely reworked the product she was proposing to partner with the publisher on and approach many entrepreneurs, especially those that do affiliate programs, are familiar with, and secure the book deal she wanted. So, yay, here's Susie's book. And look at her on her balcony in Miami. She was so excited when that book came out earlier this year. But in order to get that deal, she needed to take off her creative author hat and start thinking like the kick-ass businesswoman she is, right? So let's talk. I know there's a couple of questions in there in the chat already, but what would thinking like a publisher mean for you? How would your proposal be different? So put those thoughts in the chat. So going back to the last question I asked, Sandra said that it might influence, knowing about the publishing industry would influence how she develops her proposal and write her book. Of course. Katrina says, knowing about how major publishers work would allow me to reach my goal faster. Yes, 100%, 100%. And Marie asked, how much marketing support do publishers actually provide? I am anticipating a lot is still dependent on the author. What are the advantages to going to a publisher versus self-publishing? So that's a really big question. But what I will say is that publishers don't really do a ton of marketing on your behalf. They do some efforts, but it really varies based on the book and based on their potential for the book. So the more you can bring to the publisher, the better. They essentially, like, it's the idea that the person who cares most about your book is going to be you. And so the person that cares most about your audience is also going to be you. The person that cares the most about your sales is going to be you. All of that is sort of a good mindset to come in on. They're not going to necessarily leave you stranded, but they aren't going to like bend over backwards either, right? So that they're very much going to, just keep, they're going to keep, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. So they are going to have to split their time and their efforts among all the books they're publishing. And that's something that lessens their support versus you being the champion of your marketing for your book. Katrina says, I've heard that the audience who buys one book on a subject is highly likely to buy another book or several books on the same subject. Is that true? Yes. So think about yourself and how many self-help books you have, right? How many diet books you've had. How many personal growth books you've had. How many books about habits you have. How many books about marketing you have. Probably a lot, right? So if you're interested in those things, you buy a lot of books. And like, especially people in the personal growth sphere, and anybody, there's a little difference between like, a couple of you would be suitable for business to business buys, where a corporation would buy the book for adoption. The number one nonfiction selling book of the modern era, past 2000 has been StrengthsFinder. And here's the reason why. When I dated my husband, I found 3 StrengthsFinders when we moved in together. And that's because he just kept getting them at every new job. So that was a B2B success, right? Like that guy, StrengthsFinder guy, wasn't necessarily selling at the bookstore. He was selling to other corporations. So there's a lot of incentive in that realm. That doesn't mean, if you look at Rachel Hollis, nobody's adopting her stuff for courses or, corporate buy-in, right? But, the word of mouth there is really high. Amanda says, I would think the publisher would want to know how they make money off your book, that your background is marketable, and how your book fills a need in a different way. Totally. Yep. That is that in a nutshell. And also, I think it's too, like, conversion is really important for online entrepreneurs. So saying like, I, out of a standard open rate for an email is, 20% and mine is 30. That's pretty good. So it's like almost like an idea of proof of concept of like, when I have something to sell, my audience buys. That's an important piece too. So let's move on and talk about the third thing, which is writing the damn thing. So every morning I get up and I spend 20 minutes writing in my journal, free writing, right? Every minute, 20 minutes, every day. Practically every day. Some days I take a break, but every day I write 20 minutes, okay? So I hear the scratch of my pen on paper, I drink my coffee, but when I ask the author to write 20 minutes every day, guess what happens? Guess what happens? Nothing. No email dings with material, no text message proclaiming I'm working on it with the smiley nerd emoji. I usually have to poke and prod and cajole and ask a million times before I get anything. And that's because writing for most people is difficult. And all of us, I would think, need accountability and support to complete hard tasks. I know I do. But so often our family commitments and our client obligations and the work tasks and all the pandemic stuff, right? Having to take care of everything, chew up all of our time, and invades whatever we set aside for the book. Or perhaps you generate so much content for your business that the idea of writing one more word makes you want to tear your hair out. Or perhaps, and this is really more often true than not, your hourly rate is so much higher than the cost of hiring a writer that you worry it doesn't make financial sense for you to write the book yourself. A lot of my clients are in that camp. Or you worry that taking time out to write will take precious time away from your best clients or your kids, especially with everybody homeschooling right now. Or perhaps your challenge is just that you have no idea where to start, or that you tried to sit down and just end up with a blinking cursor on a blank screen, right? Or maybe you're just really good at procrastinating. My clients are experts. or perhaps you just have so many ideas, right? No matter what your obstacle is, you've got a problem to solve, and that's how to write the damn thing. So, because in order to sell and publish a best-selling book and become the next Marie Forleo or the next Rachel Hollis, you have to write a whole book. And before you even do that, you have to finish the book proposal. So you might be thinking, I don't even know if I can write the proposal, much less the book, and that's okay. You are so not alone in that. Even the most successful writers struggle to finish projects. In 2011, I was working for Penguin when my boss asked me to help with an author who had failed to complete her manuscript for another publisher. My boss said, if anyone can get her to write this book, it'll be you. And I took that as a personal challenge. So I called this author, I emailed this author, I downright nagged this author, and you might be surprised to find out that she was a New York Times writer. Gretchen Reynolds writes the phys ed column for the New York Times, and she wrote this book about fitness that came out in 2012 or 2012. I had to try a few different approaches before realizing that Gretchen, like every person you and I know, needed support and accountability. She needed someone to break down the tasks, set some deadlines, and threaten to go all Jillian Michaels on her ass if she didn't get the work done. And she's a columnist for the New York frickin' Times, right? Crazy. But she needed accountability to write this book. She couldn't just let someone like tell her, write this in 6 months and come back. She needed me to give her small 500,000 word deadlines, sometimes 3 or 4 in a week, right? Because that's the way she was used to writing, right? So once I get into that rhythm, and once she trusted me, which was helpful because we're both runners, so we had that in common. But once we got into that rhythm, back and forth, deadline, I'm going to call you and threaten you if you don't write something. Then she started writing it. So if you're the type that tends to finish a big project very last minute, then deadlines might work for you the way it did for Gretchen, right? But guess what? Everybody's different. Some people will not have that. So what accountability is for you is going to be different than what it was for Gretchen or what it is for me. But what I've learned in 15 years of helping authors is that everybody needs support and accountability to finish their book proposal. And I'm betting that's what you need as well. So tell me in the chat, what would support and accountability look like for you? So what kind of support and accountability would you like? How would that change what your goals are and how you're working towards them? And would writing be easier for you if you had someone directing you and a bestie in the business, me helping you, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about that. There's always lag time with the chat, which I find really interesting because I'm always, when I'm on your side, I'm always like, Marie says, breaking down tasks and setting specific deadlines would help a lot. So many diversions compete for this focused time to create. Oh my God, so much. And even for my clients that have, money on the table, a deadline with me, they just, I always joke, the people that are in the rush are the people that delay it. Which the people that come to me and say, I want to get my book done in 3 months are the people that are like, I can't talk this week. Amy says, prioritizing tasks to ensure the time is spent on the right things at the right times. Yes. Oh my God. So much of this is interlocking that, if you jump way ahead of ship, I have a lot of people that want to write all the editorial before they create any kind of platform. And I was like, well, how do you know that the editorial that you're writing is going to be what your audience wants? Because you don't know unless you talk to them. Katrina says, accountability means realigning my priorities to enable a new project. Totally. We have to make room, right? One of the authors I worked with said, you have to get rid of the good to get to the great. And I think that's totally applicable here. Sandra says, I'm deadline driven, but I don't like to be driven. I work best in a collaborative working relationship. Yes, you and most people, I say. I don't have to bring out, I always joke about, do you want Jillian Michaels or Bob Harper to show up? Because I'm a big old school Biggest Loser fan. And actually, like, because I love transformational TV, I got really into like Revenge Body with Khloe Kardashian. And I almost feel like I'm like that. I'm not very Kardashian, but I like her. And I was just like, I feel like I'm her because she doesn't let anything go. She doesn't let people just like conk out on themselves, but she also allows them to step up for themselves. I like that approach. Katrina says, I often need to realize I'm working too hard and need a different approach to get more done. Oh, yeah. Totally. Sometimes we work so super hard on stuff that doesn't matter also and neglect what really does and what would move us forward. That's a very common pattern. Karen says integration with whole program launch. Yes, sister. I'm working on sales cycles for my own business right now. And we talk a lot about that, about what the book's purpose is within your business and how it can become a sort of evergreen slot in your funnel and for your clients, because it needs to serve both, right? It needs to be sort of an entree into your world and then also like sort of an insider look at your world for the people that already love you. So awesome. So I have one more question to ask, actually probably more, but one immediate question to ask. So out of the three things we talked about, knowledge, clarity, and execution, what helped you the most? What's your favorite? What do you think is going to be the biggest difference for you? Now it's time for me to drink water. Amy says, I appreciated the leverage part of clarity the most. Yeah, and people have things they let that they don't think of as assets, right? Like when I started this webinars and all this other marketing stuff, I I love watching myself on video. So that's an asset for me. I'm not scared to do an Instagram live, which by the way, I'm doing after this. So you can join me at Meg Stevenson. That's my Instagram. I'm doing an Instagram live about branding. I don't care. That is an asset, right? Like me being able to like go on and just be like, la, or the fact that my husband's a designer and bought me all these cool like selfie lights that I didn't even know existed, right? That's an asset. People underestimate what they've got going. Marie says a tie between clarity and execution. Yes, sister. Elizabeth says, I now know what I need to work on, but also feel good about where I'm in the green. Yes. Yes. So much of this is honestly within our control. Also, like a lot of times what I find is that my clients need a hand, a helping hand, just like you would with a lot of other things that are outside your expertise. That's why I kind of think of myself as not necessarily a tradesperson, but like definitely like a niche person, almost like when entrepreneurs talk to me about hiring someone to help them with Facebook ads, I was like, that's a whole world of knowledge that all people do all day is figure out the changing algorithms of Facebook ads. I feel like I'm in sort of the same camp where all I do all day is figure out how publishing is evolving and what the sort of barometer and the feeling is in the industry and what's changing and what's working and what's not working, what the perceptions are, so that we can, so my clients always, we maintain that high success rate. Sweet. Okay. So today I promised that you would learn what you need to do in order to write a book proposal that sells. You learn that knowledge, clarity, and execution are key to becoming a published author. In addition, we got super specific about how the industry works, why it's important to think like a publisher, and how nearly every author in the world, including some that write for the New York Times, need support and accountability to finish their book proposals. But more importantly, you may now also realize that knowledge, clarity, and execution are the keys to making your book dreams come true. So the big question is, what are you going to do now? You could write the proposal yourself, of course. I've given you enough tips to get started, certainly, but writing a proposal involves hours of writing, compiling research, and eventually sending your precious to email purgatory at a literary agency where you're never really sure anyone will see it. Not to mention a heck of a lot of platform building, even for those of you that are in the green. Or you can get help. So I love to help people collaborate on book proposals and the platform building that comes with it. I get super excited when my clients start businesses, grow their audiences, and ultimately change lives with their message. I love seeing the transformation that happens to my clients throughout the process of working with me, from being unsure of themselves and the importance of their work to feeling confident in getting results for their audience. Ultimately, I believe in the power of story, the power of your experience, and in the written word to help people. In my world and my opinion, books are simply a megaphone. It's another piece of your platform to be heard by even more people. Finishing a book proposal is just the first step in your journey to becoming a published author. And in my experience, developing the proposal helps to develop your platform, both as an expert in your field and your confidence as a person. Plus, as a business owner, books tend to bring in more qualified leads and therefore more profit. It's a total win-win. I do so much heavy lifting for my clients. I collaborate on the book proposal, yes, but I also help people build platforms, create businesses, and carve out niches based on their personal and professional goals. My clients feel like I'm their secret weapon. They're bestie in both the publishing world and the universe of online entrepreneurship. That 84% success rate comes from somewhere. And up until now, my business has been super exclusive. You had to know somebody who would work with me to get a slot in my calendar. But now I want to make a bigger impact myself. So I built out a sales funnel, yay! And I'm helping more people become authors, people just like you. So if you want a book deal, you should apply to work with me right now, okay? So I put that link there. I can also put it in the chat. When you click that link, you will notice there's a short little video and then an application. Don't worry, I'm not asking you to write your book proposal now. Just a couple simple questions to see if we're a good fit, to remind me of what you've told me in the chat as well. I review every application personally. I want to make sure the clients I work with are serious about getting a book deal and are ready to do their part to make that happen. I can and will provide the guidance, support, and accountability you need. Heck, I'll even write the whole proposal if you need me to, right? I'm going to be there for you when you have questions, when you have concerns, and are freaking out about what your mom will think when the book comes out. And I'll be your partner when I introduce you to my favorite literary agents. But I need you to show up for yourself, and that starts now. So if you feel like you have to do this, or that you're being called to do this, or it's simply a smart business decision for you right now, or an excellent career move, or all of the above, I encourage you to step up, apply, and hire a professional that has your back. I know what it feels like to be a frustrated creative, and I know from experience too what it's like to be an entrepreneur who knows she could be playing bigger, because I've been both, frankly. And I can help you, not just with crafting a book proposal, but with growing a platform and fitting your book into your broader goals, both personally and professionally. I got you. I can be your secret weapon, both in the book biz and your biz as well. You don't have anything to lose but your opportunity to make this happen. Even though I have a team helping me out, I don't offer courses. I help people do two things: build a platform, write a book proposal. And which one you belong to or where you're at depends on where you're at now, right? So if no one knows who you are yet, then you're a natural fit for Platform Builders Bootcamp, which is my group program that I offer. And if you have an established business already and an audience, then you're eligible for the 2 VIP slots I have available starting this fall. Whether you become a platform builder or a VIP, you'll be working with me and my team of expert collaborators in a highly collaborative manner. Even though I've grown and opened up my business a lot, my capacity is still really limited. We like to keep our company small and mighty so we can do our best work for every client we work with. Like I said, there's only 2 slots available for VIP yet this year. We have 2 opening, should be in August and September. Okay, and Platform Builders has more room, but it's only really available to like 7 to 10 more people. So to snag one of those slots, all you need to do is fill out the application. At the end, you'll be able to book a one-on-one call with me. Now, you might have to be patient because I'm limited because I'm working with clients, so I don't take consults like day in, day out, right? But I do have them available, and if it happens to be, you know, in August or even like early September, and you know that there's spots available, that's when the spots start. So it's a good time to do it. So book a call with me, and that's when we're going to talk about where you're at, where you want to go. And if you do book that call, no matter when it is, by tomorrow, you'll get $500 off the price of Platform off the VIP. Okay, so platform builder is a little less expensive than VIP. Themselves is always a good bet. And in my experience, there's nothing more unstoppable than someone on a mission, except two people on that mission, right? So I'd love to help you achieve your dreams, like I have for Denise, for Susie, for Gretchen, and so many other offers. Yay! Okay, so it sounds like I was frozen. Oh no! Okay, gonna have to have words with my husband. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully I'm back now. Yay! Okay, great. So basically, the rundown is I have two different levels of working with me, Platform Builders Bootcamp and VIP. Where Platform Builders Bootcamp is less of an investment than VIP because, frankly, I'm doing less work, okay? VIP, I'm all in on your proposal. VIP is 6 months long, Platform Builders is a year long. So the intention of Platform Builders is to get you to the level of VIP, right? So in Platform Builders Bootcamp, we really talk about author platforms and we figure out what you need to get you in the position to be ready to write your book proposal. VIP is for people that are a little more established, they already have an audience or can build up that audience very quickly. They'd be in the yellow or the green of what we talked about before. And they can, you know, get there very, very quickly. So yeah, that's sort of the difference. I have 2 slots available for VIP yet this year. The rest will open up next year in 2021. I do about 10 proposals a year, so I'm pretty limited. And then Platform Builders is bigger, if only because we're working with you longer. And then when you're ready, you level up to VIP. So that's sort of how we're set. So I would love to help you all achieve your dreams like I have for so many other clients. So go ahead and book that call. I will drop this in the chat. And then I'm happy to take whatever questions you've got. So let me know if you have questions. Does anyone have questions? All right, you guys are gonna miss out. Marie says, once the proposal is accepted, how long before a book goes to market? So I tell people from the day they start working with me, 2 years. And I'll explain that out. So my program is 6 months. As I said, some people come to me hot, right? They come to me like, I want to get this done tomorrow. And so we can do that. We can work pretty fast. That being said, the time is usually held up by both ends. So by us, you know, working through stuff methodically, and then also the people that we work with tend to be pretty busy themselves. So just getting through everything takes time. So we said 6 months. So let's say we hold that. So we do, let's say we started, you know, beginning of the year, January, it's just easy to use that. So we'd be done by end of June. So we have our 6 months. Then we go out to agents, depending on when we get agents. I only go out to about 3 to 5 at any given point. And so when we go out to them, they could be really busy themselves and take 6 weeks to read it, or they could be, you know, available and reading it on their phone at the nail salon. You never really know. So that can take time. So it can take as little as a week. It could take as much as 6 to 8 weeks, right? So that's sort of how that goes. From there, they'll have a call with you. Then there's contractual stuff on their end of getting you into your agency agreement. So that, depending on, you know, your negotiating skills and all of that, can take a little while. And they're going to submit to the editors. So that'll take another, let's say if we're done in June or July. Let's say we're done July 1st. We go out to the agents, they say yes. You're signed up with them on August 1st. They would send us any revisions, that's covered under our VIP. So let's say we're done and they say, hey, we're not going to submit at the end of August because all the publishers are in New York and they all go to the Hamptons for the last 2 weeks, so no one's around. Cool. So that means your book's going on submission to editors in September, which is great. And they'll look at it, they'll say yes or no. That whole process probably takes about a month. So then you're getting your deal paperwork in October. They'll give you 6 months usually to write your book unless there's something really weird or timely involved in it or a lot of research. And in that case, they'll extend your deadline. But let's say they say, okay, you know, you have 6 months to write your book. That starts the clock in October. That means you're done the following April. So now if we started in 2021, January 1st, 2021, you're now April 2022 you're handing in your book, okay? April 2022, you're handing your book. They need another 6 months to do the production side of it, copy edit, proofread, typeset, print it, get it distributed. So in all likelihood, then you're looking at a fall publication. So August or October or November of 2022. That's why I say 2 years, right? Because I'm almost to 2 years there. And that's not a lot of window for, you know, negotiations of the deal, negotiations of you and the agent wanting revisions, the timing of everything. You know, the pandemic sort of halted things for about 2 weeks on the publisher side while they sorted out all their work from home stuff. And like that's sort of where that happens. So I always tell people 2 years. You know, I had a client, Rachel Rogers, she just handed in her manuscript like last week. And we sold that book, I want to say in May of 2019. So, or May of 2019 is when she got her agent, and then they sold it probably in like last summer. So it took her a full year, you know, to get all that stuff done. So it's kind of crazy, honestly. It takes a lot longer than you might think. Sandra says, how long does the right to submit process usually take? So that is basically that. So I always say 2 years. It could be less, could be more. Does anyone else have any other questions? Come on. Make sure I'm not missing anyone. Who manages the book tour and marketing? So it depends. Usually the house would coordinate. So not a lot of people get book tours anymore. If you are doing a tour, it'd be on you, mostly to fund it, to organize it, to reach out to bookstores. The publicists at the houses will take care of coordinating, like making sure books are there, making sure the booksellers are in on it, that sort of thing. But usually it's an outside publicist. So my expertise sort of like wanes at that point because I don't usually have a lot to do with like after the book's handed in, the manuscript's handed in, I don't have a lot to do with that. But one of my best friends is a publicist at Simon & Schuster. So I know that they coordinate usually with outside people on that. So it would be someone you hired to help you publicize the book. And Marie says, what do you like best about this work? Honestly, so I work on a lot of how-to. So I love benefiting from all my clients' expertise. I learned so much stuff and I get so much free product too. It's awesome. And I learn a lot. Like I've learned a lot about entrepreneurship from my clients. You know, I love like, I always say like, it's almost like being a best friend with someone for like 6 months and then disappearing, because that is the relationship I have with my clients, is that I'm like really in all their business, like literally in their business, personal, professional, otherwise, for 6 months and then I'm out. And I really like everybody I meet. Like I have such a blast meeting everybody and I love books. So it makes me happy just to talk about them all the time. So, and I love business also. So it's like perfect for me, all of this. So I love my clients. Like I like to pick people that I wouldn't mind having a drink with or gossiping with or hanging out with. So anybody else got any more questions? Marie says, thank you. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. So stay tuned to your email too, because there'll be a couple more like little bonuses and follow-up stuff. But otherwise, if nobody has any questions, I am going to head out. But thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. You're welcome, Amy. You're welcome, Elizabeth. You're welcome, Amanda. Thanks, y'all. Have a great rest of your day.